Okay, welcome to my presentation about code quality and testing from nuclear power plant software to business card websites. First of all, thanks for having me. I'm so glad that you have selected my presentation and I have the ability to share my knowledge with you as a Drupal developer in the community. It's really appreciated. Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm Peter from Ratingen, Germany. I'm working at Erdfish, a German Drupal expert services provider. I'm working with Drupal since 2010. You can find my profile on drupal.org with my clear name, Peter Maimescu. I'm a ISTQB certified tester. We will talk about simple use cases and complex projects. I see a less complex project as a business card website, as you probably know, and complex project could be a nuclear power plant software which needs to work every time, cannot fail, must work, must have 0 bugs. At the beginning, we will talk about a disclaimer, very important stuff which you need to know upfront before you write tests, which I learned with pain during my daily job. Then we will talk about static code analysis. We'll describe this to you. Afterwards, we will actually talk about writing backend tests, end-to-end tests, Drupal.org as our continuous integration platform, which you can leverage. And we will again talk about the right tools for the related project complexity. Okay, automated testing cannot save you from misconceptions. If your project isn't described good, you have no good strategy, you do not know your features well, then automated testing cannot save you. Then it's the situation like with the stone. The stone, yeah, will be too hard for you, even with automated testing. If you have miscommunication in your team, if your project manager says B and you understand A, well, then automated testing cannot save you. If you do not have enough practice in testing, you haven't played around a little bit in your side project with testing tools, if you do not get a feeling by, let's say, community work, if you try to learn from others, then automated testing cannot save you. So yeah, work on your testing strategy. Yes, every written test is a good test. The more tests you have, then better. Take your time and write every test you possibly can. No, that's wrong. That's marketing. I've learned that. There are many blog posts and many service providers which are telling you this stuff. For me, it's a lie. You should really think about what makes sense for your purpose. Probably you have seen this testing pyramid in the internet. There is a baseline with automated tests. You should have a lot of automated tests. Then you should have less automated component tests, up to a very small set of manual session-based tests. Well, this can also work for very large-scale projects where money and time does not play a role. Then you can follow a testing pyramid. I will show you what works in real projects which are paying your bills. Yeah, let's start with static code analysis, finding bugs without actually writing code. You can stay a little bit lazy, like this lion here. So you must not write code. You just use tools which are testing your software and analyzing it showing you potential bugs and helping you making your code and your project better. I have brought to you a little bit of code. Do you see mistakes in this code? Do you see what's wrong with it? Do you have any idea maybe? Yeah, there are some issues, and you must not read the lines one by another. You can use PHP Stan for it, and PHP Stan actually has a tryout online page on their website where you can check this code, and it will show you what's wrong with it. It will show you that this data time immutable class cannot be discovered. There's a issue with the data format there, and this is information you can get for free without actually writing any manual tests. Later on, you can download this presentation because I have collected important commands for PHP Stan and the other tools, which I use during my day-to-day work. So here you see how you can install PHP Stan via Composer, which command you can use to analyze your code via PHP Stan, and how you can generate a baseline. This is our example for configuration of PHP Stan. What is a baseline? Baseline, let's say you have an ongoing project, and of course you will have some violations, and PHP Stan can generate a baseline for you, so you can start with no further violations and issues, and later on you can fix the violations you have and make the baseline smaller. That helps in integrating PHP Stan in ongoing projects. In this PHP Stan config example, you see that we have level 4. They are up to level 9. So you have 10 levels in PHP Stan. The higher the level, the more strict PHP Stan is working. In Drupal, level 4 makes sense. So from my point of view, it does not make sense to go higher than level 4 in Drupal projects because PHP Stan is very strict. If you have some common errors which you cannot overcome or which are very costly to overcome, then you can ignore the errors also, so they don't even go into your baseline. This is the example for the baseline. So you see we have a call to undefined method. PHP Stan cannot discover some functionality. This can potentially be an issue. This can also be a false positive. However, it's good to check. But for now, let's say you are in your client project, you need to get some stuff done, then you generate this baseline and do work on it when you have time. PHP Stan is also integrated into Drupal via the help from Matt Gleman, which is a very active community contributor. PHP Stan can discover Drupal symbols like Drupal modules and themes. And there's another handy extension for PHP Stan. It's called PHP Stan strict rules. So if you don't like the empty function, for example, or you don't like variables, then you can also check for this stuff and disallow it. So it's helpful when you work in your developer team and you agree on certain rules and you would not like to discuss them every time in a merge request, so you can automate this checking with PHP Stan to disallow certain practices. PHP Stan is a static code analysis tool, and it has a potential code improvements. It helps you in early error detection, improves your code quality, and it makes the analysis more efficient. It automates stuff which you otherwise would need to discuss in merge requests. However, it has some disadvantages too. It shows you these false positives. Not every issue which PHP Stan is reporting is really some issue, so you need to care this stuff. You get some effort doing configuration work. Of course, you must learn and practice PHP Stan. It has these conflicts with legacy Drupal code. When you read Drupal core code, then you see there is some old stuff which is not that modern, so PHP Stan will complain about a lot of core stuff even. Then let's talk about PHP Code Sniffer. PHP Code Sniffer is not checking the functionality of your code that much, like PHP Stan is doing, but it's for guaranteeing a common code style during your code base. When you look at this code, which formatting issues do you notice here? Obviously, there are some. This code file probably works, but it's not readable very good. And there are many formatting issues. And as you see in this output of PHP CS, it shows you that 13 marked sniff violations can be fixed automatically thanks to PHP code beautifier and fixer. So after you execute PHP CBF, your file will look like this. So it's nicely formatted. And again, you must not discuss this stuff in your merge request with your coworkers. You save time. It's easy to integrate via Composer. It's very nicely documented, and a lot of Drupal projects and even Drupal core are using PHP CS. The coder module from Drupal is extending PHP CS, so you get the Drupal coding standard and the Drupal practice coding standard for free. Just download this presentation and check my config examples. They can be helpful for you. You can execute PHP CS via the command line and check which coding standards you have. So you can use PHP CS for Drupal, and you can use it for any other major PHP framework like Symfony Full Stack Framework or Zend Framework. I think Zend does not exist anymore, but it's enforcing the coding standards across your code base. It does automatic fixing, reduce time, improves, again, your code quality. But it has also disadvantages. It has no baseline like PHP Stan. It works differently than PHP Stan. So you must actually learn PHP CS too. If you have a legacy code base, then you get tons of errors. You can overcome them by ignoring certain directories. You can start with a clean directory. If there are too many violations and you don't have time, we are developers. Most of us are working for agencies. We need to count our time somehow. And not all code standard violations, of course, can be fixed automatically, but most can. Now we will talk about writing tests. The standard unit test framework in PHP is PHP Unit. Unit testing exists in a lot of programming languages. So in PHP, and PHP unit exists. It's a very long time, has a huge ecosystem, which I will demonstrate you and show how you can integrate it efficiently in your Drupal project. So we start with a simple example. We have a PHP class, which is just returning the string hello world. And then on the right side, there's our PHP unit test, which is only proving that our get hello message method will return the desired string. So this is a pretty simple example. There are no dependencies for this class. Very simple. Let's go one step further. Here comes dependency injection into play, and you see the benefit of dependency injection. We have our user service class here, and we are injecting a dependency. So here's the user service, and here we are injecting the user repository, and above we are creating a mock. So we are not actually testing this user repository, but we are constructing the methods which this dependency should provide to our individual service here. And at the end, we are asserting that the get username method is returning the desired username. So this is also a rather simple example. Often you must mock multiple extended multiple classes from outside, but this is the most use case which I have stumbled upon. Another very helpful feature in PHP unit is a data provider. So you can define an array with a variety of data which will come to your method. So you can, when you have a method which is calculating some data, then you can construct various data sets, pass them to one method, and asserting the results. So here above, you have the addition provider, and below you have this this reference data provider to addition provider, and parameter A will be this, parameter B. This actually are the parameters 1, 2, 3. Each of them is one parameter to your PHP method. So when you calculate 1 to 2, the result should be 3. Very handy data providers. I have used them many times, and if you check probably Drupal core, then you will find an example there. Often we have the case that we have private methods which we would like to test, and we would not like to create interfaces or special services just to test these methods. Even our client application does not need that. So we don't want to write code just to, we would not like to write public methods just to pass something to our tests. We can do that, but from my point of view, it's over-engineered, and it's easier to test these private methods directly. We can do this via reflection. There's this reflection class object you can use, and you can make it accessible, and that way you can execute a PHP method which is private in your test method. You can do this also with methods which have parameters, and you can test private properties too. also with reflections. There are people which don't like reflections. They tell they are slow. Well, we are using them for tests. We are not using them in production. So I think for tests, reflections in a common approach are okay. PHP unit is really well maintained, so it's using the current PHP features like PHP attributes. So you can, you must not write PHP doc blocks anymore. You can use PHP attributes. Let's talk about code coverage. It requires the Xdebug PHP extension, and if you have it installed, then you see this beautiful reports in your web browser. This is an example of a perfect code base where every line of code is executed via our tests. Everything is 100%, and you see which code is triggered via your tests. However, this is not perfect. It's just showing you that your test is executing certain lines of your code. This does not tell very much, so be careful with code coverage. However, it is somehow helpful, and you can integrate it in PHP Storm too. That's my preferred IDE. You see next to each line which code has been executed by your PHP interpreter during the test. PHP unit has a very nice documentation. As you see, each version has its documentation, so you must not fight with outdated documentation. You can read the documentation which is matching your version of PHP unit. Again, easily to install via Composer. Here you have an example for a PHP unit configuration. And you see here two test suites. One is a unit test suite, and one is an existing site test suite. Yeah, what is an existing site? We'll talk about that, and I think it's very helpful. Again, examples how you can execute PHP unit just with your central PHP unit XML file. You have the possibility to define a dist XML file, which is for your entire project, or you can have a local PHP unit XML file without this dist file extension, where you can play around with different configurations of PHP unit without touching your project's PHP unit file. And you can, of course, pass a specific PHP unit file for a module, for example. So if you are developing a project, PHP unit tests for your contrib module from your client project, then you can specify the PHP unit configuration for it. And now we go again a step further. We have talked a little bit about code coverage, and now we talk about infection. And infection is a PHP extension. It's a PHP unit extension. It's more like a tool, which is also providing you a web interface, and it tests the effectiveness of a test. This is something which is working since computers are working faster than they have worked 10 years before. And you will experience this when you are executing tests via infection, because they are not so quick. They take much more time than plain PHP unit tests. Infection internally generates tests with crazy data sets, which you haven't probably foreseen. and it's really checking how effective your test set is. Most commonly, you have only tested the happy path. You have tested the perfect case, but infection tells you a lot about your code and how you could stumble into pitfalls. Here we have an example for mutation. So you have a test, but what is if any developer modifies your code and modifies this parameter here to an empty array? Your test suite will pass, but actually your test your code is wrong. You have a bug, and so infection indicates that that you haven't foreseen an important case here, like an empty array. This is the beautiful web interface of infection. Again, the perfect case where every mutant is killed and everything is green. Here you have the filter parameter. So when you really work with infection, you probably like to work with the filter parameter because you see that that infection is slow actually. And when you are filtering your code, then the report looks more like this. You see just one PHP code file, which is executed quite quickly with infection, and you see that you have only achieved 85% effectiveness with your test suite, and there are some edge cases left which you haven't covered by your tests. Now let's talk about testing Drupal modules independently from one single project instance. You can do this with support from Drupal core with the kernel test base. The kernel test base lets you install some Drupal module, like your Drupal module, and let's say check if the module is installed. But you can do a lot of more stuff with the Drupal core code base. You can use the entity kernel test base, where you have a lot of pre-configuration, pre-installed modules for testing entities, like the user module, the field module, and others. So Drupal is abstractedly installing an instance of Drupal for you, which is very, very small, much smaller than the minimal installation profile, for example, with only the module set which you need and the configuration which you need. And actually, it's some work because you must really think about what my module needs. This entity kernel test base helps you out. You can check your IDE and find usages of this class, and you will find tons of examples in the Drupal core and tons of examples how you can test your Drupal project on Drupal module, actually, which is isolated from one project. But if you like only to test your single project without testing modules which you might like to share across multiple projects or which you would like to contribute on Drupal.org, then I would really recommend the Drupal test traits. They are from Moshe Weitzman, which you probably know because he's the Drush maintainer, and when you're a serious Drupal developer, then you are using Drush, and you know that Moshe is creating awesome software. And with Drupal test traits, you can spin up your Drupal project very quickly, and you can write unit tests based on your real project with your booted database, with all your data, of course. And it saves you time writing all this boilerplate work, like defining in kernel test-based tests, which modules should be installed, which configs should be applied. Now you're just actually using a database dump and your composer and everything what's actually running in your client project configuration. Here we have a code example. So we are setting up our Drupal project here based with existing site base. The setup method, which is large in kernel test-based tests, is here rather small. Just the Drupal project is booted, and yeah, here we are getting our container. This will be this Drupal importer service. We will import some news, and afterwards we are just using the entity type manager, getting the node storage and checking if the expected imported news are in our database. So that's happening a lot. Your Drupal is booted, all your functionality exists, and your test code is rather small. So we have talked about PHP unit. It enables you to test complex functionality quickly. Imagine an online shop where you have a checkout process. So you have some complex functionality at the end of your checkout process in your online shop. When you are testing it manually, you must click 10 times, fill out 10 form fields to trigger one specific function. And with PHP unit, you can quickly jump into this functionality and test it without all this manual work in the web browser. Again, it improves code quality. It has this large ecosystem. PHP unit exists since a very long time. It's integrated in Drupal core. So you can check how Drupal core is doing it, how well done Drupal modules are doing it, and you can take all your PHP unit know-how to other Drupal to other PHP projects which are not based on Drupal even, or you can learn that way how to write unit tests and do unit tests in C#. Yeah, it can save you time for bug fixes, and it can give you confidence in refactoring. However, you should really think, how does PHP unit work with my test strategy? If you have a small budget, if your project is not that complex, then you should ask yourself, do I really need PHP unit? Do I really need to test everything manually? Shouldn't I integrate also my client into the project, so the client tests this project too? Yeah, and like every tool which I'm talking about, it has two sides. It has its benefits and the disadvantages. It's PHP unit by default are made for small functions, units. By default, it's not meant for testing real data in databases. If you have a lot of dependencies, if you are not respecting dependency injection, and if you might not really handle dependency injection, then you need a lot of mocking. And yeah, I had a lot of pain with writing tests for code which has never been meant for being tested. So just don't do that. Don't try to write tests for code which is not really testable and was never meant to be tested. It's very hard. And be aware of all this marketing. That there are people in the internet which like to sell you consultancy, and they tell you that you should test everything. Really consider the time amount and try to practice it by yourself. Now let's talk about end-to-end testing in the web browser with Cypress. Like I've shown in the pyramid, it's the top of your testing pyramid. Cypress is only simulating a web browser. Maybe you have worked with Behat in the past. Then you might like Cypress because Cypress is quite new compared to Behat. It has its own browser interface and own UI. So here's an example of Cypress. At the left, we see the test steps, which Cypress has executed. Everything has passed. And on the right, we see simultaneously the output in the web browser. We are creating here a to-do list item with Cypress. And if Cypress is failing at any point, you will immediately see this in your list, and you will see this in the web browser. So you can quickly simulate actions via Cypress. Cypress tests are written in JavaScript, so they are pretty easy to learn. We have this CY object, which offers you a lot of functions, like this visit and get functions here. These tests here are from the Cypress example tests. So just download Cypress, install it. You will get a lot of examples here. It's very nicely documented. And as a developer who has written Behat tests a lot, Cypress is much more nicer and feels much more natural and is easier to configure. You can install it via NPM. NPM is the package manager for JavaScript and TypeScript code, so like Composer for JavaScript. Like I said, real-time feedback, own browser UI, easy integration, no complex setup. It has also disadvantages. It has only a single tab execution. So let's say you develop a WebSocket application and you would like to test something across multiple browser windows, then Cypress isn't supporting this. Cypress is limited to only one single tab. It does not support native mobile apps. It's really for web development, and it's limited to some browsers. It does not support every browser. Okay, then let's talk about leveraging Drupal.org for continuous integration. In the past, and even now, continuous integration in GitLab or Bitbucket is quite costly, depending on what you're doing, of course. But Drupal.org is providing you a platform for continuous integration for Drupal modules for free. And these tests are actually executed quite quick. If you have checked it, then you will see you have GitLab like normally. You have all this testing pipelines, and they will be executed like in your paid project on GitLab.com. We have GitLab templates, so you must not write your own GitLab configuration. You can include GitLab templates, which are maintained and are testing most of the stuff. Actually, most of the tools I have shown to you, like PHP unit tests, like PHP CS and PHP Stan, you get all this for free with the official GitLab templates on Drupal.org. Just include them. And you get a lot of documentation. Here you see the comments for this GitLab CI template is longer than actually the configuration. Still, you can configure it. You can say with which PHP Stan level you need. You can specify your PHP CS configuration. And a nice thing in this GitLab CI templates is that you're not only able to test with the current PHP version, but you can also, or not can, the tests will be executed against the previous and the next PHP version too. So multiple PHP versions will be triggered at the same time. And if you like, you can also extend this GitLab CI configuration and test JavaScript code, like I have done here. I'm executing npm audit, so I'm checking if my JavaScript code has any security issues. Okay, which solution should I use for my project? If I really have a simple project like a business card website, I would only use PHP-CS. And if I would have a client which would like to make me a nuclear plant software with Drupal for him, which I hope that we never get such clients, but we are living in a time of Trump, so maybe it happens, then if you are in this situation, just use every tool you can have, follow this testing pyramid, do 100% code coverage, kill all mutants with infection, go up to level 9 with PHP Stan, make sure you do ignore nothing with PHP Stan and PHP CS, and try to test everything with Cypress, which can be manually tested via the web browser. And good luck that you have a testing strategy which fits. Make sure that you are communicating with your stakeholders and you speak one language. Yeah. So hopefully we have no issues with the nuclear plant software. Okay, so that have been my slides. We have 8 minutes for questions. Feel free to download my presentation. And yeah, do you have any questions? Yeah.
Hello, it was quite interesting. 2 small questions. Why is there not maybe a PHP Stan bundle package for Drupal? I know there's one for like Laravel and Symfony. Why is there not something that exists for Drupal which would maybe be able to understand like Drupal code more in depth? And secondly, like I know at one point infection testing wasn't really compatible with PHP Stan because it would like things PHP Stan will tell you were not possible. Like the infection testing will tell you like, oh, you haven't tested with these different variables and types. Has this improved since like a few years ago or not?
Okay. You had this a question about the PHP Stan extension. Why do we need to extend PHP Stan? Yeah, Drupal has some Drupalisms, like this module files, the theme files, and they are not automatically discovered by PHP Stan. So that's the reason why we are having this extension from Matt Clement. So you even can test module files, theme files, and other Drupal file formats with PHP Stan too. Yeah, infection and PHP Stan are different tools. PHP Stan is analyzing your code and with static code analysis. That's why it's called static. And infection is totally different because it extends your unit tests. It's checking how effective your unit tests are. If it's creating data sets and passing them to your methods.
Yeah, but for example, with PHP Stan, you can say that like your array is non-empty. Like this is, you can say if that one of your types, the array is not empty. And like infection, now I don't know if it's still the case, but it used to be the case that it would still generate an empty array for the test, and then it will tell you, well, your unit test doesn't pass because you didn't cover the empty array case. However, PHP Stan takes care of this because statically it has checked that every single call site, you're not passing an empty array according to your type definition.
Now, PHP Stan is disconnected from your unit tests. PHP Stan does not know anything about your unit tests.
Yeah, I'm well aware of this.
And it goes much beyond this. When you execute PHP Stan, then your CPU does much less work than infection is doing.
Yeah, but this is not the point. The point is that like sometimes an infection test will be created when PHP Stan has already verified that this case cannot happen, and so that you don't need to handle this within your unit tests or within your own code.
Do you know what? This is a thing where PHP Stan and infection might overlap, but there are so many things where infection does stuff which is.
No, I'm not saying it's not useful. It's just I was wondering if you knew if this sort of like edge cases were improved. Because I know
I
some
don't
people
know if it's improved over the years compared to PHP Stan.
Hi. In your previous slide, you said that for a small business website, you would only use PHP CS, but why wouldn't you use PHP Stan there? Because Stan will give you a better code, and CS will give you just a code with coding standards. So why wouldn't you use the PHP Stan?
Yes, this slide is only demonstrating that you should separate these tools. You might have a little bit more complex website than a business card website where you have some class methods where you can really leverage PHP Stan. But let's say you have a very small client project for NGO or your fishing club where you have 2 or 3 hours for working on it. Then you could use PHP CS. Okay, when you are experienced in PHP Stan and you have a quick setup, then you can also take PHP Stan. But if you have only a half day of capacity, then you shouldn't start writing 100% code coverage testing, right? So you need to think which tool does the job. Here's one more question.
Oh,
yeah. There's a common pattern in Drupal classes where for dependency injection of creating the class with having create method which is called new static to create the class, which PHP Stan, I think at anything higher than level 1 objects to. Is there a good solution or sort of a good pattern to behave, to make it behave nicely with PHP Stan, other than as somebody says, ignore it?
I'm not sure if I have understood your question. There are many approaches to overcome issues with legacy Drupal code or stuff which cannot be tested with PHP Stan. I approach them by ignoring certain cases. I approach them by going these levels. I work with the baseline too. You can check the PHP Stan configuration from Drupal core and contrib modules. I don't know, does this answer your question?
Not quite, but yeah.
Yeah, we can talk later on more in depth maybe. Just come to me and let's chat.
I think it's just something that PHP Stan has its kind of accepted pattern, and the way Drupal creates classes with dependency injection seems to conflict with that, and I don't know if there's kind of a long-term thinking on an approach to that, or whether it's something we're just going to live with forever.
Yeah, by default, PHP Stan is a little bit academic, and it does not know Drupal. So I recommend to install the package from Matt which extends PHP Stan with functionality for Drupal, like discovering this Drupalisms. It has other functionalities too. Maybe you check the GitHub page from PHP Stan, Drupal. Yeah, there are so many developers which are working day by day with PHP Stan and Drupal. So if you have specific issues, then chances are that other developers had issues too. There's one more question.
Hello. I'm very interested when you said that you have been, or you were using Behat, and now use Cypress.
Yes.
In my case, we use Behat a lot.
Yes.
But I think that Cypress is interesting, and I would like to know your experience moving from Behat to Cypress, in the sense if you have many problems or not, or it was a very easy transition from Behat to Cypress.
Behat is a little bit more complicated because you have this Gherkin language, right? You have this Gherkin language, which is for a human-readable language.
Yep.
So the developers of Behat thought, hey, we could create a language where project managers and stakeholders can create tests without developer work, right? So you have this Gherkin style patterns like I visit this page, then I click the button, and so on. I have never seen a project where a project manager has written any tests. So this is totally useless, and it's one layer above the testing code, which we don't need, and we can save time by getting rid of that. The Drupal community has spent a lot of time in working with Behat, and there is a Drupal extension for Behat too, where you have stuffs like creating Drupal nodes, some media entities with Behat. So you can set up your database in the behind, up front, your actual Behat test. So you have strong functionality for Behat tests, right? And you are not limited to one single browser tab. So Behat is very powerful, actually. But you should think maybe this complex database stuff, maybe this complex processing stuff, maybe I can test this more intelligent via unit tests or kernel test base or with a Drupal test trait. Must this be done with Behat? That way you can save time. Have you worked with Behat a lot?
Yeah,
a
lot.
Then and you haven't worked with Cypress yet, right?
No, I have seen it.
Yeah,
but for example,
then you have to go for Cypress. Install it. You will notice it will be so much easier, and the interface is so much nicer.
Yeah, but for example, in our case, we have managed to get some people that are not technical to dig into the tests. Maybe they don't write it, but it's very useful to kill the uncertainty or the things that are not defined, because you can show the test to someone that is not technical and they kind of understand the test. If you show that test in, I don't know, in something that is not Gherkin, they will not understand. So in our case, Gherkin is kind of
So if
useful.
you are able to leverage the Gherkin language,
yes,
then it's a profit. I can show you. I've written a lot of this Behat tests. I can show you an example. I have created this project, a module project, which you might stumbled upon, permissions by term. And when you check the source code, then you will see Behat tests there. I've written a lot of them, and you see also a folder for context, where we have this background task for setting up our tests, and we have this features. So, and here we have a behead test. At the top, so at the top we are setting up some users, right? And below we have our scenarios, and we are writing our tests in Gherkin language. So this text here, given permission mode is not set. This is Gherkin language, and is provided by context. So I have a PHP class where I have defined what a given permission mode is not set is doing, and it will execute some stuff. In theory, project managers and stakeholders and testers are able to write such tests. It looks that you have a quite large and professional project, because I haven't not ever been in the situation where I could leverage this with my team.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Time's up.
Yeah, so it's done. Thank you.